Today I'd like to show you how I like to tie a spring ghillie fly. In this example I'll be using a size 8 gold Esmond jewellery treble, and to start with I'll tie on using black 80 thread. So tie on, a few turns to hold it in place, cut off the surplus, then we'll use open turns to the back of the hook and then bring it back towards the middle. Next we'll be using the Garten non-tarnish French tinsel in gold to make up the tag. So bring it to the hook at the top, a few turns to hold it in place, then 3 turns at the back, 1, 2, 1 more, then bring it between the barbs, round and back on itself. Now a couple of turns of thread to hold it in place, take the surplus, bring it to the back, and now with the thread again, tie on, hold it in place, and that will be used for the rib. So there we go. The next is to add some yellow bucktail. So we need to get some together. I like it to be nice and straight, but that's just my personal preference. So we'll take a bunch. Take out some of the surplus. There we go, we got a bunch. Put a little bit too much to take out a few of the extra strands. Now, I like this to be about double the length of the hook. 1, 2, about there. And tie it on. 2 full turns to hold it in place, and cut the surplus. Next we want to add a piece of gold tinsel and a piece of UV flash-a-boot. Take 1 piece of each. Hold them together and tie them in on top of the fly. Not quite as long as the tail. A couple of turns, hold in place. Bring it back over itself. So now we have 4 bits heading towards the tail. And now open turns again, not too tight, towards the back, and bring it towards the centre again. Okay, at this stage, just cut off some of the surplus. Now each bit should be at a different length, it helps stop it sticking together. There we go. The next is to add the next bit of the tail, which is a bit of yellow Arctic runner. So, get it together. So, now we need to take the guard hair out, so just grab your fingers, pull it out the bunch. Okay. Now this, you want to tie in about half length of the tail. Okay, again, not too much. So hold up to the fly, Bring the thread over, I hold it with my finger just to keep everything in place and then drop the thread. There you go. A few turns to hold it in place. Looks okay. Cut the surplus away. And tie it in. Okay. Now, tie it in towards the tail. Okay. Now on this particular version of fly, I like to create a hot spot above the tail here. What I've done is add a little bit of red Arctic runner on the top. So there you go, take a little strand of it. Again, pull the guard hair out. And this time we really don't want a lot of it. So yeah, that's plenty. Now hold this up on top of the tail. And hold it in place. Good. We want this to be bang on top, so be quite careful when you're doing it. There you go. Cut the surplus off. Just check it's sitting on the top. See, there you go. Seems to be sitting on top okay. Now the next is to start the body. And the first bit is the back of the body, which is gold holographic tinsel. That's the way I do it. I like to add it in the middle. A few turns, hold in place. Now, because I'm tying the fly for myself, I like to use quite a bit of varnish to hold everything in place, so just add a bit of varnish underneath here. There you go. Now, put the thread on towards the back of the fly. Once you get to the back, I like to add a little bit more varnish over the top. This helps the fly stay together. If it gets munched, it's less likely to unravel. So just touching turns back towards the middle. There. Lock it off with the thread. A few turns. Cut off the surplus. Okay, next we use the black uni floss for the front of the body. What I like to do is I just give it a little lick to hold it together while I'm tying on. So tie it on again at the top. Okay, and because, like I said, I'm tying for myself, add a little varnish underneath. Put the front of the body on, touching turns, try to keep it nice and smooth. towards the front. And not too closely in the hook. A couple of turns to hold it in place. Back on itself, another couple of turns. Just lock it off. Cut the surplus off. And you know what, you guess what next? A bit more varnish before I add the rib. So a little layer on the top. Little layer on the bottom. Now, grab tinsel and nice wide open turns. Bring the rib to the front. And it's at the front, lock it off. The tying thread, 2 or 3 turns, bring it back on itself, another couple of turns. At this point, just for security, I like to put half hitch in the tying tool. So there we go. And cut off the surplus. And as I said, a little more varnish on the body. Keeps everything in place when you're using the fly. Okay, now we have to wait for that to dry for a minute or two. But while we're waiting, we want to turn the fly over, because the next part is to put false hackle on the bottom. And it's easier if you just turn the fly over. So turn it over. Okay. I just need to wait for it to dry. Take a minute or two. So, to create the false hackle, take a feather, open it up. What we do is we want to get some of these barbs off, a good bunch. So, hold it together. There's something on a few more than that, so again, just hold it, pull them off, and collect them together in your finger. So there you go, a nice bunch. Okay. Looks about dry enough, so we introduce it to the bottom of the fly. A couple of turns to hold in place. So, and then use your thumbnail to spread the fibers a little bit. Okay? And then tie it in nice and securely. Next, we need to remove the excess. A little difficult. There we go. And again, dab a little bit of varnish on it, not much, just a tiny little bit. Now, on top of this false hackle or beard, we want to add a little bit of blue guinea fowl, and again we'll use the same method. Open up, feather a little bit. This time we don't want to take too much, just a few little bits. So there you go, just a tiny little bit. Again, introduce it to the bottom, not quite as long as the yellow. A few turns. Looks good. Cut off the surplus. Now at this point I'm going to change the thread I'm using. So I want to tie it off 2 or 3 turns. There we go. Cut it off and turn the fly back over. Okay. Next, we'll be tying back on using a hot orange thread. Again, 08 or even 80. Tie it on. Cut off the surplus. So the next part of this fly is using some natural squirrel dyed yellow. I'm going to take a bunch off, it acts as a wing. Again, not too much. Let's put about enough. Cut it off, all the tips, and pull out any of the shorter bits. Again, just no. It can be too much, so make sure there's not too much. Hold it at the top, about level with the back of the hook. Use your 2 fingers to hold it in place. And tie it in. Again, your thumb, nail, just spread it a little bit. Okay, looks good. So next is cut off all the surplus. Now, if you think the wing is lying too tight to the body, what I tend to do is lift the wing, my tool, and use a tying thread, bring it around underneath it. You see it just lifts the wing up. So again, a little bit of varnish. Okay, while waiting for that to dry, we get the last bit we need, which is some jungle cock. So, get 2 nice bits of similar size. What I like to do is, when I have the bits of jungle cock, I like to take all these little bits of feather off. So I don't think they add anything to the fly. So just use your fingernails, pull them off. Just like that. We'll do the same with the other one. Okay, we want 1 bit on each side. So couple of turns just to hold it in place. Do one on the other side. Again, just hold it in place, your finger, couple of turns. And just check that they're about level, which they are. Okay, next what I like to do is I like to bring the fibres back to lock the jungle hook in place. Again, do the same with the other side. Now we do lots of turns to try and build up the head. Well, I got the option, cut the surplus away of the jungle cock. Again, build it up. Okay, and tie it off. I like to do 2 or 3 turns with this tool. Then do it again. There we go. Cut off. Now all we need to do is varnish the head, and that's the fly done. There you go. A spring ghillie fly. I hope you enjoyed the video, and happy tying.